It's Primus Tracks with Josh and Frankie.
What a couple of numbers.
Hello, Primates, Primus fans, old and new. You have reached Primus Tracks. It's Josh and Frankie here. Hi, Frankie.
Hey, Josh.
Of course, you can find us at Primus Tracks on Instagram and Twitter if you want to interact with one or both of us. And Frankie, I forget your Instagram handle.
Frankie Berestein.
There you go. So at Frankie Berestein right there. You can also find him as a follower on Primus Tracks if you're not sure about the spelling. So you can do it that way. Hey, wow. Today, it's another wonderful day here in the land of Primus Tracks. We are talking about the album Frizzle Fry and the second track, which is titled Groundhog's Day. If you're not familiar with that track, and I said this last time too, press pause, go listen to it, and when you can get up off the floor, come back and listen to us. Frankie, I assume that you are stuck on the floor right now, just at the mention of the song.
Of course.
That's He's broadcasting from his floor. It must be a warm day there because you're on the cool tile floor, I suppose. So this one here, yeah, Groundhog's Day, man, we can just jump right into it. It is... This one, just like a lot of these Frizzle Fry tracks, this has gotten a lot of play live, and it's one of those that when that first chord sounds, crowd loves it, and there are big cheers because they know what's coming.
Absolutely, Josh. It's like when Les plays the intro, people go wild. People go crazy, and I think we've all witnessed Groundhog's Day at least once at any of the shows that we've been to, because it's one of the fan favorites. Yeah. And I think that the band also loves playing the track, so it's pretty easy to catch it live. And I think that it's a really amazing song because collectively the whole audience is always waiting for that moment, when the song breaks into the second part, the fast part, and everybody goes wild.
Absolutely. And I would say that is the one where the pit really gets going. Not that I go in the pit anymore. That song has been building up that whole time. And even though we know it's coming, it's going to be quite satisfying. I'm at, on toasterland.com, by the way, an unsolicited plug for one of my favorite websites. If you were to look at the sortable table for the number of times a track has been played live, and remember, this is an estimate because we don't have every single show set list, Groundhog's Day checks in at the fifth most common song played live at least 505 times played live. And
we can trace it back to as early as... How far can we trace Groundhog's Day back?
At least by Toasterland's logic here, we're going back to at least 1988.
Yeah, it seems like at least 1988. Yeah. So I think the song made its first appearance on the Sausage demo tape.
Oh, that's right. Now, I haven't listened to the Sausage demo tape in a long time, so when we give that one a spin, I think the tune, it's been so long though, you're going to have to tell me, Frank, is that tune pretty much fully formed at that point?
Yes, it's pretty similar to what we would get on Frizzle Fry. I mean, the guitar part is a bit different. The solo is not exactly the same, but the structure is totally there.
Yeah, that's one I have to go back and listen to. I couldn't remember which demo it was on, and I didn't go look. So thank you for that. But I'll be nice and I'll throw in some of the demo underneath while we're talking here, so you guys can get a listen to it if you haven't heard it yet. I do believe the Sausage demo, in some kind of quality, is available on YouTube.
Yes, it's kind of a shame because I think it sounds pretty great. But Matt Weinegar mentioned on the Electric Grapevine book that nothing has sounded as good as a master they did. He says that all the copies made after that sound kind of muddy, kind of underwater. I don't know. I think it's a shame.
Yeah, if we can get that master tape, whoever, wherever, whenever, we don't know where it is. It's one of those. I really wish somebody had put it in a geocaching container or something, and then we can go on a grand adventure to find it.
Yes.
but I don't know. We may never know where it is because it's apparently lost to history. But that's the word is that master tape that's a really high quality demo.
Apparently,
yes. We may never know. This track itself, I mean, we're in Frizzle Fry, so we've got Les on his Carl Thompson 4-string, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, we have Larry on. At this point, is he playing Fenders, I think?
I think he is.
At least when I look at the liner notes for Frizzle Fry, he's definitely playing some kind of Fender in the pictures of him. So we're going to go with it. What's interesting to me is I think in this album they essentially use the same equipment all the way through. In later albums, Les Claypool especially is switching up between basses and instrumentation. This one is pretty consistent all the way through.
It is.
So that one thing is that makes less work for us, Frankie, and that makes me happy. So I don't have to go hunting down and going, wow, which one did he play here? So, and have to be a frickin' private investigator. But I know that there are people out there that know exactly about all these things. And so, by the way, if we ever get any detail wrong, and I think there was something I said in the first episode and I misspoke, can't remember what it was, but afterwards I went, oh shit, I said that wrong. So if we get something wrong and you feel like correcting us, push up the glasses off the bridge of your nose and find us at Primus Tracks on Twitter or Instagram and issue your complaint. You will
Absolutely.
be heard, you will be read, and we will take you into our understanding arms.
Absolutely. Please let us know if we have anything wrong. We will appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, and I actually want to know if I get something wrong, because I don't know everything, and that's why I often defer to Frankie here. So the song itself, goodness gracious, let's talk about the music. As you hinted at earlier, Frankie, this tune is two distinct parts.
Yes.
And so my description, and I'd love to hear yours too, is when I think about part one, it's pretty relaxed, pretty upbeat, and it's got this dirty bluesy riffing, or the other word that came to mind was raunchy. Like when Larry comes in for that bluesy riff, I was like, that's raunchy. It really is. I feel like that word fits. And then we shift into part two, and I love, of course, the bridge between part one and two is this huge vocal scream of a sort. Part two is much more manic, and it really fits the lyrical shift too. And we also get an interlude type solo where things slow down a little bit, and then we get thrust right back into that really intense part two riff. And then at the very end, we get that really nice, crunchy, fried-sounding distortion from the bass. You know, you thought that this tune was already kicking your ass, and that just takes it over the top for me. To summarize, I'm going to go with part one. It's kind of like enjoying your morning cup of coffee. And part two kicks in, and that's when you realize that somebody put like a speedball in your coffee, right? So, I don't know. Does that sound, what do you think, Frankie?
I agree totally, and I think it's one of those Primus songs that has had a really remarkable live evolution. Yeah. So I don't know if you would mind if we go over it really quick.
Let's go down the rabbit hole for the live versions, absolutely.
For sure. Well, so back in the late 80s and early 90s, it was played fairly similar to the album version, if not almost completely identical. There's one interesting exception, though, that is Bob Cock and the Yellow Sock. As you know, this is the acoustic Primus.
Yes.
So they had Groundhog Day in their catalog, and it, like the rest of the songs that the Yellow Sock did, it's radically different to the Frizzle Fry version.
Right.
Then we continue down, with Seas of Cheese Tour, Pork Soda, Tales from the Punch Bowl, Brown Album. At this point, the song remains pretty similar. Things changed a bit during 1999 and 2000 with Antipop. At this point, Larry got a solo spot for the track, and he would play lengthier guitar solos, which Les described as his Santana spot on the sets.
Which I love, because it definitely sounds that way. And I think we got a cut like that on Videoplasty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think we do.
Good, yeah. That's when I dialed up doing my research for this, and that's where there's some really good Lur Santana guitar work that spreads out the song a little bit, so that that slower part in between those big chunky riffs lets us spread out a little bit and enjoy some jamming.
I think those early jams that Lur was able to have with the track in the late 90s hint towards the massive jam vehicle that the song would become later on. But first, we need to talk about the Frog Brigade, because Groundhog's Day became a Frog Brigade number. It was played for the first time on New Year's Eve 2001 at the Fillmore, and after that it remained in the setlist throughout 2002. And once again, it's radically different to the Frizzle Fry version. Have you heard the Frog Brigade version?
I actually don't think I have, and if I did, it was a long time ago. Gosh, yeah. Once, I gotta say, once Primus, put it back together and Tim showed up in the band again, like, I've been almost all Primus all the time. I haven't gone back down the Frog Brigade road in quite some time, so I'm looking forward to going back and listening to those live recordings, because I can't place it in my mind.
Well, it's pretty far out. Most of the versions that you can hear on bootlegs are beyond 10 minutes. It's really long and pretty jammy, very spacey. The rhythm is nothing like the Frizzle Fry version.
Are we talking both parts too? Are distinct part 1 and part 2, are they both quite different?
No, there's no slow and fast part. Like the whole thing, the whole 10 minutes are like one trippy jam.
Oh shoot! You know what? I'm going to follow my own advice. I'm going to leave you here, Frankie. I'm going to go listen to it. So if you can carry this for the next 10 minutes, I'll come back and give my report. Wow, that sounds great. So those of you out there, I mean, and we haven't talked about this yet, but the Primus bootleg community, and it's even hard to call them bootlegs now because the recordings, especially in the last decade, the quality is so high. A lot of these almost sound like soundboards anymore. But the audience recordings of these tracks, whether it's Primus, Frog Brigade, Fancy Band, Claypool, Lennon, Delirium, you name it, these recordings sound fantastic, and there are hundreds of them out there.
Absolutely.
And you can, once again, go to toasterland.com and use all of his server bandwidth by streaming shows nonstop and making him very angry at me for telling you to do that. So, but you can definitely find at least a sampling there, but that's where I would start if I were just getting into the game. So the Frog Brigade versions are quite different. I'm looking forward to looking at that.
The Frog Brigade versions are quite different, and after that we come back to Primus for Tour de Fromage and Hallucinogenetics, and it's at this point that the song was reinvented into a jam vehicle. And I think that you could pick out any version from all the official soundboards available from this tour through Primus Live, and there isn't a single version that is identical to another one from the previous or the following night. They were playing pretty unique jams during each live rendition. Les did play a cue on his bass to tell the other guys that it was time to wrap up the song, like to go back to the actual structure of the song and finish it. But prior to that, you could get like all kind of jams, like really aggressive, fast ones. Others were like, kind of spacey, very trippy. But I mean, incredible live performances. The song became really something huge. I mean, it used to be a really cool track on Frizzle Fry, but on Tour de Fromage, it was taken to a whole different level. And ever since, it's been one of those songs that they jam at every show. Although I must say that I've kind of noticed that they're not playing it exactly like, as short as the album version at recent shows, but they're not playing it that long either. They're kind of in the middle with the song now. Like, they jam a little, but not as much as in Tour de Fromage. After that, we have the Fancy Band. And you're probably wondering how the Fancy Band played Groundhog's Day. Well, actually, they didn't. It was a solo spot for Les. I don't know if you're familiar with the structure of the Fancy Band shows, but they would play a set together, and then Les would come out for the encore on his own with the bass banjo.
Right, yes, I remember those days. There would be some American Life in there, some Iowan Gal. Those are the two I remember the most. So, he played Groundhog's Day a handful of times in that format. He also played Groundhog's Day with the Rap Brigade in 2007.
And after that, we come back to Primus. Really heavy rotation of the track since their 2010 reunion until present.
There you go. Yeah, I was just listening to one from 2011 with Jay Lane on drums, and we usually talk about live renditions later, but let's talk about it now. I've got one from May 23rd, 2011 in Houston, Texas. Other than the fact that, and you pointed to it, every performance is exceptional because they're all a little bit different. I think this 2011 Houston performance is a good example of the modern Groundhog's Day. It's not too jammed out, as you stated, but it's extended in the middle and has that compelling lyre solo, but it's structured. It's not jammy so much anymore, as they have these riffs kind of locked down, and so it's essentially a 6.5 to 7 minute version of the song, something that has been rehearsed, and they play it out. And it's a pretty darn nice version, and I really think the live recordings with Jay Lane, to me, are the better renditions of this song, because I've seen it live with Jay a couple of times. Loved it. He really funks it up on the drums, especially in the Lur Santana portion. And as that song careens towards its conclusion, he holds it down, because Tim's drum part is massive, especially there going towards the end, but Jay could do it. So those Jay Lane recordings, if you can find those, toasterland.com, go ahead and find them. There's a lot of good recordings of this song.
An interesting live performance that I would like to mention took place on October 29th, 2003 at the Civic Center in Santa Cruz. Are you familiar with this show?
The Santa Cruz show rings a bell. Go ahead and tell me more.
Well, it's pretty special for several reasons. I'll tell you the first reason. Well, they opened set 1 with Nature Boy, followed by Pudding Time, and then Les walked on stage with the 6-string fretted bass. He performed Del Davis Tree Farm.
Oh, very good.
And when Les pulls out that bass, there are very, very specific songs that come to your mind, and you're like, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna do Hamburger Train? Is he gonna do DMV? But at this show, I think you're not gonna believe what he followed Del Davis Tree Farm with.
You're right, I'm not.
Hellbound 17 and a half.
That's why I know this show, okay? I'm looking up the set list right now. So I remember that because that's a very rare performance of that track, and
it's an extremely rare performance. But the reason I'm mentioning this show is because this is a pretty historical performance of Groundhog's Day. If I'm not mistaken, this very well could be the longest performance of Groundhog's Day in the Primus live history. It clocked in at 17 minutes.
Oh my gosh! Awesome. So here's what we'll do. I'm just going to put that underneath this entire episode, and you guys can just listen to that and ignore our voices. We'll do that.
But there is a specific reason why it was so long, and it's that the barricade was starting to cave in. So
right.
Les didn't want to play the fast part and risk the safety of the attendants, because it would have totally collapsed. So he wanted to give the crew time to fix that up. So he extended the slow part as much as he could before playing the fast part. It took a whole 17 minutes to play the track.
What horrible timing too. He's like, if we bust into this part, if I cue the guys and we get into the big end of part 2, this place is going to fall down. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So I think the moral of this story is that Primus saves lives.
Yes, absolutely.
especially if you don't hit the rockin' out part when your structural integrity is at stake. That one is you can certainly stream on Toaster. I'm sorry, Toaster. I'm sorry, dude. You can definitely go stream it there. A lot of great live performances. Hopefully, you guys can go find those. Before we get into lyrics, there's one more thing. Is when you were talking about the song structure as a demo, it was pretty much there. And once again, we have kind of a traditional verse, chorus, but again, the chorus is more musical, which is especially in part 1, and it's accented by some oh yeahs. Like, that's the raunchy part to me, like the oh yeah, because when we get into the lyrical content, it's a guy scratching his balls when he gets up in the morning, and he's you wake up sometimes in the morning, you got to do that, and you give it an oh yeah, because it helps you wake up. So, and I'm not trying to be gross, everybody. It's just one of those things. So, and then they mash it together, that roaring riff in part 2, which I just love, because they had that, and we talked about it a little bit last time, they had that metal edge to them here and there, partly because Larry's past and Possessed, but also their involvement with Blind Illusion, that was pretty edgy stuff, so that edge is still there.
It is.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, too, that much like the last track we talked about, To Defy the Lost Tradition, this track's guitar melodies were written by and credited to Todd Huth, who's an excellent guitarist in his own right.
Totally. I think Todd sells himself short a lot of the time, but he's a really incredible guitar player.
Very much so. And I'm going to plug something else this time, which is his band Porch. They have been in and out, on and off for many, many years, but they do have a few albums out there. You can find them on Bandcamp. And I had the fortune of seeing Porch live once, and it kicked ass. So if they get back out on the road, please check them out.
I also want to point out that you were right. I did some digging at Claypool Servers, and they posted a picture January 29th last year. It's a Polaroid of Larry playing guitar with Primus during the Frizzle Fry tour. And it is a Fender guitar. It's a white Fender guitar.
Okay, very good. Now, I don't know all my Fender models, so somebody can probably chime in and tell us. But it's definitely some kind of Fender. So that's cool. And then we'll find out when he switches to the PRS at whatever point, because somebody else knows that as well. I just don't, off the top of my head, don't know. So let's talk lyrics. This one has a lot of lyrics. If you were to open up your Frizzle Fry liner notes, you would see that Groundhog's Day has a couple of columns of lyrics there. It's a long one, and there's some interesting stuff going on. To me, this is the introduction to Les Claypool the Storyteller, which is a common thing going forward with Primus songs. He's often said, hey, I write lyrics for what I know about, and he knows about himself, and he knows about the people around him. So it's, and as we all do, right? So it's semi-autobiographical, because he recounts the pay-for-play business of life in general, but I also think he might be talking about the music business.
And the advice from his dad.
Right, and the advice he got from his dad. He talks about pop. Yeah, so in part 1, there's some humorous stuff. I already kind of mentioned some of that. But there's also some really excellent enjambment. I also like using literary terms, Frankie. Sorry to bum you out if you feel like you're in school again. But that one line, when he says, linger and taste the toothpaste, made the milk go down a bit funny, but right? He's jamming that into that little space as much as he can. So he's taking a lot of syllables and cramming them into that line, which is great. So there's really no rhyme scheme at all to that whole narration in the front end. And I'm also curious, too, is if there's a metaphor underneath waking up and wanting apple pie. Is this just, I literally woke up and wanted some actual apple pie, or is this the metaphorical slice of the pie that we talk about, or have heard about in American culture?
I think it's metaphorical, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not the only Primus song where they mention apple pie. It's a recurrent topic in the lyrics.
Oh man, I'm blanking. Where else do we get the apple pie?
Don't get caught with your fingers in my pie, Electric Uncle Sam, and you get to bite the pie in the sky, Anything Crawler. So it definitely sounds like a metaphor.
I think it's a convenient rhyme too, but as far as the phrase as American as apple pie, so I'm thinking is he talking about like he wants his slice of the pie as far as the rat race goes, and to use another metaphor. But in that first part, if that's what he's talking about, and if the pie stands for a metaphor, and the closest he can find is some cereal, I guess. I mean, especially when we get into part 2, he's regaling us with the difficulties of making it in the working world, especially if you're not connected, which I believe is what he's talking about there, and that's what Pop told him to. The last thing I guess I want to say about the lyrics is that one of those last lines is, and I have to look it up, but it's soured by my learned eyes, which actually sounds really cool. The taste is strong, but soured by my learned eyes. Okay, that's a really good line, first of all.
It is.
There's a lot of really great sensory detail in these lyrics. And like we said this last week, if you just wrote these down or just read them on paper, they just kind of read like stories. So this one definitely has that, But that part, you don't have to be old and wizened to see what the world is really like. This guy's in his 20s when he's writing this, and he's already had these kind of experiences, which is awful, but it's a formative experience for him too. So he's already got some wisdom under his belt here.
And a lot of the things that Les touches upon in his lyrics, they tend to become recurrent topics throughout his career because on Frizzle Fry you have Les name dropping Barrington Hall, and that would become a song further down the line with the Frog Brigade. And the topic of this track, the one that he covers on the second verse about the adversities of the music business, it's something that would also become the topic of another song, Running the Gauntlet.
Good point. So yeah, these are things, once again, he's writing about what he knows. And that's not to say he doesn't know a whole lot, but there's a lot, if he's coming back to these topics, that means there's more to mine in the topic itself. And he's a thoughtful guy. And that's clearly coming out here. He does make fun of himself in the Over the Electric Grapevine book with, it might be next time's song, where he's saying, I wanted to sound deeper than I really know how to think, but, he's definitely going deeper than average. These are not surface lyrics, as we've mentioned before. There's one other thing in the lyrics. He mentions Little Snappy Boy. He's talking about himself.
Absolutely. And, pull out your copies of Suck on This, and you will see that the credits say that airbrushing was done by Snap.
Yep. We know who that is. We also have that on Frizzle Fry as well. Snap is credited for the airbrushing once again on the cover image and the cartooning that we see those skeeters playing their instruments.
And Harold of the Rocks, right? Snapdad.
That's right. Snapdad appears in Herald of the Rocks as well. So Snap's all over this thing. And I remember not knowing who the hell Snap was for quite some time as a kid. At some point, the light went on. I couldn't tell you when that was, but the light went on and went, oh, this makes perfect sense.
Can I mention just one last thing about the lyrics?
Yeah.
Back when I posted my illustration for Groundhog's Day for my project on Instagram, I tagged corn checks because I mentioned them in my description of the track, and they actually liked the post. So that made me wonder, like, are they aware that their product is mentioned in this track? Do they know about Primus?
That's a great question. And the CEO of Corn Checks, and it was just Corn Checks, like, right? Rice Checks didn't like it, like your post. And I'm guessing Wheat Checks doesn't like anything. So but Corn Checks did. So I wonder if the CEO of General Mills or whoever, or somebody in the marketing department in 1990 went, hey, we got to use this. But there was no social media then, so who knows? Oh, that's a great point. That's so cool that they liked your post. So, when a cereal, first of all, when a cereal comes to life and likes your Instagram post, you've made it.
I agree.
Yeah, so it must feel good up there, Frankie. All right, so let's talk about our takes. You know what? It holds up for me for sure. The other thing is it really shows how dynamic this band can be, because we've got our differentiated parts 1 and 2, but we also have differentiation within parts 1 and 2. And then with everything you were talking about as far as how this song evolved and changed live over the years, this is a band that likes to tinker and make it sound the way they want it to sound. And I think part of it is so they're not playing the same thing every night and it gets boring, but also because there's more territory to mine in there, and I really appreciate that they do that.
I do too. I agree completely.
This one, hopefully it stays in live rotation forever, and we get more and more versions of it. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I think it will, and I mean you can see it with tracks like Southbound Pachyderm, Herald of the Rocks. When a Primus track successfully makes a crossover to the Claypool live catalog, you can tell pretty much that Les loves the track.
But yes, it's definitely one of his favorites if he's taking it with him other places. Groundhog's Day, that's not your shadow. You've been tracked.
I love it.
Next time, we are going to find out how many is too many. And Frankie, I hope it isn't 3, because we will be joined next time by a top secret special guest.
Absolutely. And for all our listeners, let me tell you that you're not going to believe who's going to be on the show with us. We're going to have an epic program.
Definitely. Join Frankie on the floor, because you will fall down when you hear the name. of the wonderful person who's going to join us next time. So strap in or lie on the floor. Put a towel, a damp towel, not overly wet, not too hot, lukewarm. Put it on your forehead, and you'll be fine. That's all we have from Primus Tracks. At Primus Tracks, Instagram, Twitter. I'm going to put out some more prompts. It's been great interacting with you, so let's keep talking, guys. Later days, Willie Mays.
See ya.